Thank you everyone for attending today. So from now, we would like to begin the Tokyo Contemporary Art Award 21-23 Symposium. I will be serving today as the host, Tokyo Arts and Space, Mami. I would like to introduce the speakers now. Shigariyako, the winner of the Tokyo Contemporary Art Award this year, and also TAKEUCHI Kota. Next, the Director of Arts Maebashi and Associate Professor of Tokyo University Arts, SUMITOMO Fumihiko, who is also the jury leader. And Director of the Beijing Inside Out Art Museum, Carol Yinghua Liu. She is joining us from Peking via online. And also the moderator today, Arts Initiative Tokyo Director, Yuko SHIOMI, who is also the Secretariat of the selection. They have been joining since the inaugural award. Thank you. I would like to. So as I was just introduced, I am Yuko SHIOMI of Arts Initiative Tokyo, and I am serving as the selection secretariat since the inaugural award. Thank you for joining today. There will be two parts of the award symposium today. In the first half, I will talk about the award, which has happened for the past 3 years, and also inviting Carol Yinghua Liu and Sumitomo Fumihiko to ask them about the award in the past 3 editions, as they have joined the selection committee the whole time, and also about trajectory, which is a word that we use in this award. It's similar to Korea, but we are using it purposefully in this award. I will explain in a moment. In the second half, we will ask Shigariyako and TAKEUCHI Kota, the winners of this year's award, to talk about their plans for the exhibition that they will have here. So then, I would like to move on to the first half of the symposium. First of all, I will introduce the Tokyo Contemporary Art Award and about how the artists were selected. So this TCAA began in 2018. The co-organizers, Tokyo Metropolitan Government and TOCAS. The meaning and goal of the award is to support outstanding Japanese artists, mid-career artists, who have the potential and determination to develop overseas through the support of MOT and TOCAS. Aiming to support outstanding artists. They receive 3 million yen for their activities, and also support for activities overseas to develop their careers. Also, they have an exhibition at the MOT and a monograph is produced. However, during this pandemic situation, it has been, of course, difficult to go overseas and support, so we have had to find other ways to support them in doing this overseas research. Also, for the current, the exhibition here at MOT of Shitamichi and Kazama, Shitamichi was able to go to do his research overseas, but not Kazama, who planned to go to Berlin. In terms of the process shown here on screen, there are 2 routes that the artists are selected. First of all, through recommended candidates, and also through open call entry. This time there have been 57 candidates, and out of those candidates, 6 artists were selected through interviews and discussions with the selection committee. Normally, the overseas selection committee members would come to Japan to visit the studios, but of course this wasn't possible, so they joined online this time. In the 3rd edition, we will ask Lieko, Shiga and Kota TAKEUCHI to talk. They are the winners of this year. One of the features of this award is that it has a selection process involving visiting the artist studio. Here is a photo of joining Shigariyako studio. So it's not just about selecting the artist, but about going through a process of dialogue and discussion among the artists and selection committee members, where they have exposed to critical viewpoints to have a better understanding of the artist's expressive concerns. This time, we visited Shiga's studio in Miyagi. And this, is the studio visit, as you see. It was very cold, so we were told to wear warm clothes and take measures, as you see. Next, the visit to TAKEUCHI studio. According to his request, we didn't visit his studio, but we held an interview at the MOT conference room. There's a picture of this. Next, here's a flow of the TCAA over the past 3 years. As I explained, there's the award ceremony. In the second year, there's the supporting of overseas support. And then in the last year, there is the exhibition and the producing of the monograph. So Shiga and TAKEUCHI, as you see, is the award ceremony this year, which is being held at the same time as the initial winners, Kazama, Shitamichi, who are having the exhibition this year. So they are overlapping, these two events. The exhibition this year is Shitamichi and Kazama, and Fuji Hikaru and Shitamichi are joining, were the winners last year. So Kazama and Shitamichi are showing old and new works, so please, we welcome you to visit their show. Next, about the jury members, we have a list of all the members of the jury up to date. There are 6 international selection committee members, and Carol and Sumitomo have served over the full 3 years of the TCAA. So then we would like to ask them both about their experiences through the 3 years in a moment. So are you happy with that, Sumitomo? And
yes, also Kondo.
So yes, Kono also joined for 3 years. So as you see, Sofia Fernandez also joined, and Meiro also joined. So I will just turn off the slides now. So then, asking Sumitomo and Carol to reflect on the previous committee over the past 3 years. So we are focusing on the mid-career artists, as you know, and kind of supporting them nationally and internationally, offering a creative space to explore possibilities of critique. So the goal, the award is not about the goal, but it's about looking at the possibilities that lie ahead in the future. And of course, we have the exhibition right now of Shitamichi and Kazama, who won the first award 2 years ago. And I would like to ask Sumito, who saw the exhibition.
Well, it's unfortunate that Carol can't be here to see the work together, you know. So like maybe just more or less like updating her, like what I had witnessed. So the front room, it's like you get to see the the very fast works of them too. So so 2 totally separate exhibitions, not like that. Like basically so it's almost like stating the beginning point of them. It's like you can see it from the outside through the windows, and that was quite good actually. Like sort of gave me quite a strong impression actually, because as has been mentioned, so the first interview, what we try to evaluate, out of the artists, so the Maria Lind said that trajectory. It's something like which we're going to look into. So, so in other words, instead of just focusing what's going on now, but what they had gone through, what they had been interested in, like those things may get changed in future. But that trajectory, like we look into it, and then like we try to understand, like sort of we try to support, like the activities for the future. And yeah, so that was the the focal point, like which we had discussed initially. And I don't know whether they kind of sort of paid attention to that part for their exhibition, but at least like sort of they put their very fast works. And Shitamichi is like now, he just introduced the works in Naoshima, and Kazama is the Magic Mountains, like those are the motif, and like how works are based on those Magic Mountain things, and their works, like sort of like their practice. It's not like sort of based, like they didn't really sort of carry on the flatland, but like always there's up and down, and then like somehow we could witness those things, from their exhibitions. Or maybe I shouldn't really talk too much. But anyway, like that was the exhibition, my feedback on it, and so what we discussed initially. I mean, like I used the word judge, but it's not like sort of a jury is judging artist, but because like always like sort of we get like the finalists, right? Sort of we often like ended up like discussing quite a lot with them, and to understand or to share their experiences and try to understand what they want to do, to further their career or activities.
So thank you, yes. So Carol, of course you haven't been able to see the exhibition this time, but we sent you some photos, I think. And I'm sure you have seen them.
ですよね。で、今住友さんおっしゃっていただいた
And yeah, as Sumitomo mentioned, through these studio visits that we deepened the interaction with the artists. Is there some kind of lasting impression that you had through these artist videos, the studio visits? If you could mention them.
That I won't be able to get to see the exhibition, because for me, this award is not just about selecting the artists. It's about all the interactions as well as the process of working that comes out of this award. So I was very much considering this exhibition as part of the award. And I think the exhibition is not just a reflection of the artist's achievements, artistic achievements, but also a process of reflection for the artist as well, having this opportunity to look through and organize one's practices at this point of one's career. I'm sure it's going to be very valuable for the artist's own personal development.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you. So then, if Sumitomo, you have something to add?
Just something I just remembered. 2 days ago, yeah, like there's a talk by the Kazama and Shitamichi, and what I thought was that Kazama was saying that she was more like a sort of reactionary in a way. So the early works and then current works, like the difference she was talking about, and that today she's more. She wasn't really kind of sort of she's not really doing a criticism basically. It's not necessarily being criticism. I mean, like as dear Thomas Mann's, Magic Mountain, like when that she referred, like sort of those are the motif for the current exhibition works, So like we could see some sort of trajectory changes in her processes, the way she approaches things, that came about in her exhibition, and the way you see things, and the changes. The way you perceive things, there's something you can share, And maybe like those are things like something like which we are not even aware. It's like we may not even have the language to discuss about those things. So like that's something I kind of sort of felt. So like seeing Kazuma's work, like what happened, how did it happen, because like her work is like sort of in terms of like pictures, it's really strong, strong compositions there on a woodcut, but like for new works, like sort of different elements coming in, and that's something I sort of noticed. And that's the difference, right? Sort of what we did the interview 2 years ago, and then now what came out is like you can see the difference there even, within this 2 years. So that's something I thought about.
Thank you. I just asked Kawara also about this, but about Shitamichi and Kazama, of course, there have been some kind of changes, as Sumitomo said, but since Kawara hasn't seen the exhibition, a bit difficult. So rather, I would ask about through choosing these 6 artists and discussing with them, learning about their background to the work, kind of the time that is given to talking with the artists, through the 6 artists that were interviewed this time, and through the dialogue. Is there something that you found, discovered through talking with the artists?
Absolutely. Actually, when reviewing the 6 artists that we have selected as the finalists, as the winners for the award, it's quite interesting to realize that we have been paying a lot of attention or giving a lot of recognition to artists who has a very strong research process in their practice. We have been looking at artists who are very experimental in their thinking about art, in their approach to art, but also they have been very consistent and very engaged in developing and investigating into issues that they found very urgent, that there is a very strong urgency in the issues that they address in their artistic practice. So these artistic practices, these careers were not just career in the sense of the art world, but also a kind of personal mission, personal journeys. The artists were very compelled to pursue those concerns in their work because they concern them personally and historically. So I felt very inspired by these artists' practices. Also, this process of interacting and learning, not just about the work, but about the process of working, about the background, the motivations for their artistic work, helped me also understand, as a foreigner, the cultural historical context of Japan to a certain extent. So for me, it's really an incredible learning experience.
Thank you. So within the section committee, of course, you have different perspectives, of course, among the committee members. And, obviously you deepen your views of the artist, but just want to move on in the discussion and to talk about something unique in the TCAA, which is, of course, the unique studio visits. But usually this would actually have the artists, the jury members coming to Japan and traveling in the same bus, visiting the studios and deepening the dialogue and discussion among the jury committees. But of course, that wasn't possible this year. Of course, this year it was only one member who could come. And of course, joining online, This has become the kind of norm last year. So Sumitomo also joined online this time as well. So this, when you can't actually do the exchange face-to-face, and also being able to go overseas and do the, as part of the award, only Shitamichi was able to do this last year, of course. So in this coronavirus pandemic situation, what kind of role can the TCAA have? I would like to talk about that.
Yes, well, that's something like a sort of happening, that's something critical issues like which we are facing at the moment. And so like there are two sides to it. For example, so to understand artist works, like we try to understand it through language. And what we felt, or like, through the interview or like on the bus, we talk about it through language, obviously, but. And so like it happens at the interview spaces, or like ask the some sort of like a casual chat on the bus, So that was kind of sort of a realistic scenario, like which kind of relied on basically. But like sort of because of COVID-19 situation, like we couldn't really do it, and like sort of getting the first time opportunity. I mean, even for like the non-Japanese juries, like it's a first time seeing the artist, and for Japanese juries, like most of the Japanese artists are sort of like well known to Japanese people. So like sort of we get to understand like sort of this type of work is there and that type of work is there and so on and so forth. But that sort of time is like we kind of sort of missing it. But then again, it's unfortunate not to have it those times, But at the same time. So, like, the presentation by each artist was really strong. And so, like, at the studio visit, they thoroughly focused. And it's really dense, like a densely concentrated, the presentation was given by those two artists, those winning artists. And the way we communicated was so different because like the real-time studio visit, like things are happening here and there, like someone talking to the artist, someone looking into the work and so on and so forth. So those things are not happening anymore. So like that's the difference, I think. And this may be like more important, but the yeah, so to support the artist, like go outside of Japan, like on a global scale, global level. So the question is like do they need to go abroad? So as Stamich said, this award is like sort of like Stamich was saying, like he's been told to go outside. That's how he felt, and of course like that was the initial idea, like you have to go outside, right, outside of Japan, but like to be on a global level or global platform, like sort of do we really have to go outside? Like I think like that was the like this is kind of a good opportunity for us to look back on what it means to be global scale, and maybe like that's something we can discuss later. But like how do you think about Carol?
Well, I think first of all, I think we need to remember that the pandemic is temporary. So eventually it's gonna stop, and we're gonna go back to face-to-face interactions, and international travels are gonna be possible, which I think is absolutely crucial to the development of art anywhere. The kind of being in China, seeing how prosperous the Chinese art world is functioning within the national boundary, I'm very concerned because this kind of self-closure is really not positive, not helping art and artists to think critically and dynamically in the long run. So international travels, face-to-face interactions, cross-cultural meetings, dialogues are absolutely crucial to the development of artistic ideas everywhere, not just in Japan, but in China, in every art, in every culture. So I think definitely we need to go back to meeting face to face. I miss every experience of visiting the studios in Japan, interacting with the artists, dialoguing with and exchanging views with fellow jury members. And I think that's really a very crucial part of the award. But I think also it gives us the kind of temporary closure that we are in at the moment, gives us a kind of opportunity also to reflect, as you said, what it means to be part of a global and what is global art, or where is the global kind of art world. This is something that we can give some thoughts about, because in the past, when we think about the international, the kind of horizon tends to be mostly in Europe, in Western Europe, in North America. But I think the global is a much more kind of broader sphere, and that consists of multiple centers. And I think it's very important to keep that in mind, and to, when we're able to travel again, it's very important to kind of value experiences and points of views from different centers in this globe, not just a particular region.
Thank you. Yes, about the trajectory that we talked about earlier, in relation to the global art scene, I would like to just move on to this topic. So TCAA, it's not just about a temporary support of the artists, but giving them opportunity along long-term support. This is how we see the award. So among the selection committee, Sumitomo also mentioned Maria Lind, who was the previous jury member. Instead of using the word career, using the word trajectory as a more appropriate word. The difference being that career is kind of a way of stepping up, moving upward, whereas trajectory is more like the path or orbit or the way of moving, which it goes in different directions, not just about the newest work, but the background. The possibilities, it has a lot more possibilities in this word. So in terms of using this word trajectory, and also talking about global, this is also an important part of the TCAA. What exactly does global mean? Both of you kind of talked about this a little bit, but just passing the mic to Sumitomo again. The meaning of global, in terms of other than showing in museums and having exhibitions, what exactly global? Maybe if there's a different meaning to this.
Well, like showing the work, at the overseas museums, so on and so forth. Like, sort of maybe spend money in that way. Maybe that's easier, but of course, that's not everything, right? So, this is third round, and what I felt on this TCAA, is that so whatever the language, this critical languages we have, there are lots of creative processes or creative activities which are not described by our existing critical languages, and that's something we have witnessed And so, like, for example, like, sort of, like, finally on the interview, like, we have to discuss in English and so on and so forth. But what this artist thinking, or trying to do is may not be like sort of maybe like sort of missed out from the like a language of contemporary art, critical contemporary art, and that's something we need to push. That's something like we can support the artist, basically those areas. So when we say like international, like a global, the current trend, like, of course, like, we're not trying to sort of keep up with what's going on. Like, we need to come up with something like, no one has ever done. That's why it's important. And those things, like, we can't even describe, we can't even evaluate. And maybe like sort of the point is like how we can be the place to evaluate those something which has not on the market, on the platform, basically. It's difficult, but if we can do this, then like, TCAA would be significant, and it does have the meaning to it, I think.
Thank you. So yes, kind of making realizations that other people haven't, finding new possibilities. This is when the...
Yeah, so like, so being unique is like, there'll be like a sort of a demand for eventually, like, sort of something which people haven't realized and haven't even like sort of managed to be shared to the other people. So like, providing opportunity, like a TCA supporting artists that, sort of look, what you're doing is quite unique. So like, you should approach this way, that way. Anyway, so how about Carol? How do you think about it? It's like, how to support the artist for the global platform or internationalize, or it's not just like sort of allowing artists to give the opportunity to give the exhibition outside Japan. So, for example, so for you, Carol, like sort of as we discussed before, COVID-19 is over in Beijing, and then people just like back to normal, like domestically moving around, and so the biggest problem in Beijing is pollution, as you mentioned. So like we're still having a mask, but you guys seems like there are some areas in Beijing like people not putting masks on it. So so like they are supporting artists for global scale or like an international platform, or from like a Chinese perspective, like from where you are, like what do you think about this?
From a Chinese perspective, in the past 2 decades, Chinese artists and artistic kind of practices has been a very active part of the global art world. But we have also in this process realized that it's not sufficient to just present the works of artists. It's also important to help people outside of the country understand the cultural, the historical context where this art has been produced. I think this has been a very strong realization on some of us active in China in the past few years, realizing that it's not enough to just present the result of an artist's work, but it's also important, equally important to produce a discourse, a local discourse that describes the artistic works in the local condition, but also gives account of the historical trajectory, to use the word that you have been mentioning, to describe how historically this contemporary art in the region has come about. Because contemporary art doesn't mean that it's a kind of global currency that circulates without historical baggage. I think it's a very important idea to bring the historical into thinking and understanding contemporary art, because contemporary art in every specific cultural context comes from a very specific historical origin and process. So to share that process is equally important in terms of expanding a kind of global understanding of contemporary art, instead of clinging to the universal idea of what contemporary art is that has been very much defined by experiences, again, coming out of Europe, coming out of North America. I think regional histories are very important to be accounted for, are very important to be shared in order to expand this understanding of what contemporary art is. I think it has become a very urgent issue at the moment.
What do you think, Sumitomo?
Also, I totally agree with what Carol said, but like sort of along with what I just said. So Carol is, you just mentioned like a multi-centered world. It's like a pluralistic world. So like obviously like sort of we can't move into that sort of pluralistic world just right after the COVID-19, because like the border has been built strongly. So, but I mean like sort of trying to create center. Like are we carry on like trying to create the center? Like are we going to continue trying to create a center again and again and again? Or like maybe like sort of to think. I mean, I was thinking like maybe. I mean, it's got to be a big topic, but like so maybe we can just strive for the world where there's no center. So like sort of I mean, from my perspective, like after with this COVID-19, I mean, we were free. But like I think we were thinking about freedom, but like now we more or less like focusing on the equality. So. So the idea of like the notion of center. I'm just kind of sort of skeptical, like sort of whether we're gonna sort of stick to the let's have center here and there. It's just comment though. I mean, because if we just carry on, then like it's gonna be really huge discussion out of it. So, but
Thank you. So just what Carol just said, it will connect with her comments. In the discussion with the selection committee, Carol also mentioned this kind of local artists working locally, how they connect with their global scene, and kind of expressive forms that are possible to expand to a global platform. This is also something that was discussed. And as you mentioned, yes, Europe and America being this kind of central of the global art world, but at the same time, so then what kind of expression can connect with the meaning of a global, kind of going beyond the local and connecting with a global? This is kind of another point that was raised in the committee. The definition, of course, is difficult. But the kind of national, international, that it is that our work is being critiqued nationally and globally. Maybe the kind of discussion about this is important. Sofia Fernandez Cui, who was joining the committee for the first time this year, she mentioned that when the work is interfered with, the kind of message that the artist has in the work, this kind of localized personal historical references, may not be picked up on by the committee, by the people who see the work. There were kind of different ways of thinking about this, but Sumitomo, what do you think about this?
well, I mean, I do understand. I do agree with what Sophia said. I mean, like, most of the stuff, like, be missed up, like, may not be noticed. Or, like, maybe, like, those small things, like, may be in a work, or, like, may try to be a work, even before work, basically. But it's, like, it's quite common in art, I think. But like, that's... That, like, sort of a... That's... I think, like, we get touched upon now. And then we get pushed to it. But the as Sophia said, like, sort of a... It's really difficult to pick those small, personalized historical reference or messages. If that's something like, if like, some sort of like established logics or like, the within the boundary of the existing aesthetics, then maybe we can read it. But when we face a piece of work, it's something like which we've been asked to do it at the studio visit, but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, so, like, sort of, I totally agree with what Sophia said.
Yeah. So from the first edition of the award, Dong-Yoon also said about this, kind of artists working internationally, and he talking about, yeah, artists from Japan who are based internationally. But Carol, what do you think about this topic in terms of you just mentioned about Europe and America, countries outside of these countries, kind of the movements in China, for example, something that you have about this?
As I have said, I think while presenting an artist's work is also equally important to bringing the context, the specific context, into helping an audience member, especially someone who's foreign to that specific culture where the artist is working in, to understand better where the artist situates. So the kind of regional specificities are really critical in this process of understanding, also expanding the artist, the kind of categories or experiences, existing categories and boundaries of understanding an artist's work, in order to not to rely overly on existing conceptions. And I think the artists are already doing a lot in terms of pushing forward or overstepping these boundaries. So for artistic kind of discourses, for critical frameworks, this is a lot to be done in order to catch up with the artists.
Thank you. So Carol just mentioned just now, Chinese artists, for example, not just going overseas, but this kind of discourse in terms of the background that they have, and kind of there's a necessity to really understand the background, I think, that you mentioned. But more concretely, if in terms of the actual action the artist needs to take, in terms of the artists, the Chinese artists' expressive forms, in terms of moving it onto a global form, like the method of doing this, or if you have something to add.
I think this is really beyond one individual's work, or this is beyond the responsibility of an artist. I think it's the work of a community, an artistic community. It's a kind of collaboration that our historians, our critics need to contribute to. It should not be it should not just fall on the shoulder of the artist to, while making work, presenting his or her own work, also to account for the work. I think it needs collaboration in this sense.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you. So slightly change the topic in terms of connecting with the global world, and we talked about trajectory, and also the problem of verbalization was mentioned. In terms of the artists' activities, when considering the path of their practice and verbalizing their work, their trajectory, it's able to convey to the audience. And Japanese artists are considered maybe weak in this respect. But perhaps Sumitomo mentioned that it's not that they are weak, but that they maybe are resisting having their work verbalized in this way. So in terms of this problem of verbalization, yeah, the artists are kind of resistant to this, reluctant to verbalize their work. Japanese artists, if you could maybe mention a little bit more about this, explain a little bit.
Oh, well, language verbalization. I think there's some like sort of artists like who are sort of refusing to sort of there's some works like which refuse to be sort of verbalized, put it in a sort of logical, precise language. I mean, like I can't like give an example, but so yeah. So if I may elaborate, so like instead of like sort of the centristic, the main opinion, like there are various things surrounding it, and then like those things are related to it or something, like that sort of approach, it's really difficult to sort of to get shared. So like there must be a way to sort of make people understand like what is for example like Baudrillard, he used the word correspondence. So from those words, like if you just try to trace it back, then maybe you understand it. But so that's what I meant. And another thing is that technical things. So materialistic or like a technique, technical things, of course, like that those things cannot be verbalized in a way. Like partly because of the education, I suppose, because like in West. It's like, the artist, they don't even need to sort of make a work and ask others, like just coming up with the artist concept and ask other people to make it, right? Whereas in Japan, you make it, artists make, like, whatever impression you got from a material or object, those, the feeling or impression you got from the material, you approach to it. In that case, then it's really difficult, like what they're trying to do, what they felt, like verbally. But I think like those two elements are quite important when it comes to art, like and that's something I kind of noticed, like during the studio visit.
Carol, what do you think about this in terms of articulation, verbalization, in terms of Japanese artists or in general, particularly Japanese artists? Yeah.
This is really almost a philosophical question, and maybe I can give a kind of parallel example of Chinese art scene in the 1980s. Under the influence of postmodernism, philosophical ideas became a very kind of central feature of artistic work. It dominated almost the kind of philosophical conceptual interpretations of artwork, dominated the discourse about art. And after a while, artists became very fatigued, resisting such a kind of overpowering of philosophical interpretations of artwork, resisting the kind of imposition of meaning on artworks. And as a result, some artists turn to artistic forms, emotions, effect, the kind of intangible, sensitive features about art. So it set up a very kind of strict dichotomy between forms, crafts, senses, and meaning, philosophical interpretations. But in fact, when artists work, all of these things often come together. So in the end, it's really a problem of the discursive framework, the interpretational framework of artworks that we need to examine critically. We need to analyze critically, because all of these elements tend to play a role in an artist's work. An artist doesn't just work intellectually. An artist doesn't separate these things. It's the discursive framework that has problems, that restricts a kind of more intimate understanding of artworks. So I think in this regard, really artistic discourses need to do better.
Thank you. Yes, even among the committee members, what kind of language to use in terms of discussing with the artists is, of course, quite important. And how to kind of develop this this way of communicating with the artists is also important. Soon we will be inviting the winners, but if you had a comment about Carol's.
And then so like sort of you see Kazuma's and Shitamichi's work is there, right? And then maybe we do retrospective, just looking at the work, and then how can we explain these works? If we have this another round, then I mean sort of there are 2 years sort of in terms of time, right, in between. But if we can do that, then that could have been that can be quite interesting. Then maybe we can try that one actually. How do you think, Carol? Shall we do it? Shall we do that session? Maybe artists will not like it, but yeah, maybe we should invite the artist and then we just face their works.
So yeah, the committee members. That they travel together in the bus and go to the artist studio and do the interviews, have a discussion, and then go on to a different artist studio. This kind of repetitive thing, but the artists, the committee members discussing together, kind of becoming closer, becoming more intimate with each other. This is, of course, very important, and the kind of holding this exhibition, and Sumitomo mentioned that the committee members and the artists, the winning artists, they build this trust, this relationship, of course, is very important. And by the way, maybe some of you don't know, but Kamiya Yukie, who was a committee member in previously, she's working as the new museum director in New York. This kind of the Spotlight, which is an online project, and Shitamichi Motoyuki was also invited to join this. When he had just moved to Naoshima, a studio in Naoshima, it was kind of a live online transmission. And he showed, of course, his Naoshima studio and showed his life, his activities from his point of view. So even after, of course, the committee finishes, this kind of connection with the committee members or former members and the artists who've won the award, I hope that we see more of this kind of opportunities. We are a little bit early in our schedule, but I would like to give a bit more time to the award winners this year. So then here, I would like to invite Lieko SHIGA and Kota TAKEUCHI and hear their voice. So if you could both come onto the stage. Okay. So thank you. So then, I will just quickly introduce Shigariyako. So if I could ask someone to show the slides. So Shiga and TAKEUCHI, to talk about your work and also your plan for the exhibition here at MOT. We will be asking you, but first of all, to introduce Shiga. She born in Aichi Prefecture and went to the University of the Arts in London, and then moved to 2008 to Miyagi Prefecture. Then after 2011, the Great East Japan earthquake held a solo exhibition at Sendai Mediatek, and also at Genichiro Inokuma Museum held a solo exhibition. And also the year before last, Human Spring, she had an exhibition at Tokyo Metropolitan Museum of Photography. She's based in Miyagi Prefecture, works with the photographic medium, and kind of looks at the relationship with the local people, the kind of nature, human spirit, nature and society, things like this. So if we could ask Shiga to explain a bit about her work. Thank you, everyone. So then just at the moment, I'll just talk about the vision that I have at the moment. So this image that you're seeing right now, on the photo there is lots of writing. This is Tohoku area, a seawall in the coastal area of Tohoku, and it's gradually being completed, and soon it will be finished. But on top of that, there is a person walking on the seawall. And this is kind of right now what I'm doing, what I'm planning. And there's kind of a kind of mind map on the photo, and in the center, reconstruction after March 11th, 2011 is written. This is, of course, a reconstruction. So for me, this meaning of reconstruction is kind of the Japan, post-war Japan, is kind of references also this. A kind of conflict as well, and realizations through this word. Of course, I haven't experienced either of these, but reading in the news, and kind of learning secondhand about these experiences, this kind of different experience of a kind of feeling of deja vu, even though I don't actually experience these things directly myself. This kind of experience I had a lot. So this idea of deja vu is reflected in this mind map that I have written here as a post-humanism stress disorder that I've written. It kind of a take on the PTSD, the meaning of PTSD, slightly changing the word there, post-humanism stress disorder. A kind of the meaning of reconstruction for the people that are living in Tohoku, that after the disaster the people living there, the stories, what kind of stories they believed about the life that they led, this kind of experience, kind of reinterpreting their stories. So when you're walking, your body kind of experiences a change in the sense of time. So you're moving forward concretely, but at the same time, the road is kind of receding behind you. Kind of as you keep walking, the sense of time maybe disappears. Well, when you verbalize in this way, then of course that's how it is. But kind of walking together is something that we like walking backwards almost through the past. This kind of safe everyday experience. They're kind of looking to an imaginary ideal future, something like this. This is kind of these kind of different meanings in the word reconstruction, connected with the kind of mending the daily experience of local people, kind of working from zero. The kind of this meaning of the and there are lots of recycle shops in Tohoku, but as a country, as a prefecture, kind of starting from zero, there was this reborn art festival actually that was happening in Tohoku. This kind of similar idea is this concept is prevalent in this exhibition as well. So this kind of, but actually, has this reconstruction really happened? So the 10 years after the disaster, of course, this kind of idea of walking and kind of reconsidering what this reconstruction means. So working kind of in a team, thinking as a kind of basis for thinking about this idea, this standing on the wall, and this action of walking. So actually, and also listening to locals, their experiences is also related to this action of walking, I think. And acting as a kind of vehicle for the stories of local people, and through trial and error,
So like sort of maybe it's in the future, but how are we going to bring in this walking body? I have no idea. So so at the moment, maybe photo or images, videos, use them as a tool, but I don't even know whether that would be a right choice. So I have no idea. But what I'm thinking is that so people walk to the exhibition venues, right, to see the work. So the body of those audience is the most important things as far as I'm concerned. So how that body perceive my work is something that those things I'm thinking. And can you just change the slide? One more. This is the walking on the sea walls, and this is the it's totally different slide. You may get surprised, but so So the support from the TCA and exhibition opportunity for me living far away from Tokyo. What does it mean? So that's what I've been thinking. The significance of it, that's something I've been thinking, something which you guys been discussing. So doing nothing but studio open. So that's something I shared at the studio visit. So sort of for the research, I go somewhere and come back. I mean, traveling may be important, or instead of going somewhere, we just open the space to open up somewhere. Maybe if I think about the reconstruction, then maybe that's something really important, to open a place. And there'll be see, this project is for the 2 to 3 years, right? So after the exhibition, sort of someone just mentioned that after the exhibition is important. So before the exhibition is also important, and so maybe I just open the studio now, open the studio door now to the public. While I'm there, as long as I'm there, open the studio. It sounds a bit shallow, but the shallowness, is important, I think. So exhibition, during the exhibition period, or even before the exhibition period, so the multiple places, as a multiple layers, the functions are multiple layers, and then they influence each other. That's I'm thinking at the moment. And can you just move on the slide? This place is like this. So it's near Ishino Construction Company. It's a construction company, local construction company. And they giving me space for free. Used to be a pachinko parlor before. So it's just use it, it's but after the earthquake, lots of damages, seal may fall down, and water leaking, those things were happening. So you can use the space for free. And I think it's just totally looking into sort of a different direction to capitalism. This kind of sort of negative space in a way, in a capitalism. And just their idea, right? Just you can use it without any profit. And so having that, then I can open the space, that has sort of extra meaning to it, extra significance to it. And because I was living in the refugee site, so the experience I gained from there, being a refugee, the temporal houses, sort of now, we got the walls. So I came up with a different. So this place where I was staying during the the earthquake, there's no walls. Because the idea is if you build a wall, partition to divide the people, then sort of you get left alone there. I mean now because of COVID-19, so you need a wall and the separator and so on and so forth. But just looking back looking back my experience of where I was staying during the earthquake, and
so in terms of receiving the support, there was kind of lots of discussion about this earlier, but me receiving this, kind of feeling bad for that I'm already receiving this kind of support, from the local. They're kind of questioning what the artist does, and being supported, and getting an opportunity to show an exhibition. This kind of different flow of events, we have to consider different approaches as artists, I think. And this is something that I feel. If I could just ask you to go back to the map. So again, in the center of the map, this eternal presence is written. And the meaning I can't really go into detail because we don't have time, but it's psychiatry. Kimura Bin is a psychiatrist, and kind of epileptic fit. It's kind of the symptoms or the situation, the action of doing this. So losing past and future, and your body kind of is closed off to the world, but at the same time, you kind of this metabolic energy that the body has in this state of epilepsy is kind of really is also a kind of special state in a way. And also this connection with the photographic medium, that maybe there's some kind of similarity or connection between these states. And so considering this way, the human world, this kind of madness of human society, but trying to go forward into the future. In this state, this kind of idea of eternal presence maybe is a kind of a global, it can be extended to global situation. And this kind of the seawall that we have, it is kind of also kind of this idea of protecting human life. The course of the state of the nuclear power plant of Fukushima, we're not sure. They have this memory of this, but the place itself within society, this memory of what happened will obviously be left. So from the global perspective, this kind of the human acts in extremity, these kind of traces of extreme human acts. In times of maybe traveling, going overseas, as we talk about through this award, but kind of this story of reconstruction, this is kind of, I would obviously like to go abroad, but this idea, I think, of basing myself in Miyagi, in the place, and this idea of the eternal presence. And this kind of source of energy, being this source of energy, things related to this, the kind of the spirits, like in festivals and rituals in Japan. There were many of these in Tohoku region. I think there is plenty of places to visit already, yeah, through my experience, but thank you very much. So at the end, after both of you have spoken, I would just ask Carol and Sumitomo to say a few words. So next, Takeuchi Kota. So then I would just quickly introduce his activities. He's born in Hyogo Prefecture and is currently living in Fukushima Prefecture. He graduated from Tokyo University of Arts and then has shown, for example, at Museum of Contemporary Art Tokyo, Yokohama Museum of Art, National Taiwan Museum of Art, Pompidou Metz in France, and also is currently showing a solo exhibition at Snow Contemporary in Tokyo. So his work is based kind of on field work and research, and also his own physicality, and developing through different media such as painting, video, photography. So then, Takeuchi, if we could ask you to speak a little bit about your work and your...
Hello, my name is Takeuchi. Thanks everyone for coming. So can you just put my images on the slide? So, so this is the image I've been using for like, sort of reporting up the award winning, so on and so forth, like into different mediums. But this is the image. So Japanese army during the World War II, they tried to attack the mainland of the United States with this balloon bomb, which is quite unique weapon. And so So before receiving this award, I was doing a research on this balloon bomb and where, yeah, so the place I'm living, like Iwaki in Fukushima, that's where this balloon bomb is one of them to get launched, and visiting those areas and where it's landed in states, so seems like through my research, I just discovered that yeah, there are a couple locations in states, doing interviews and researches, like how impacted the local people here and there and so on and so forth. Like as the Shiga just mentioned, like this walking body. So like just flying something away, letting things go instead of you walking, but like just automatically attack enemy. And you're just sitting there, or like looking at the balloon going, or maybe not looking at it, or like those. I'm thinking about those things, Can you move the next slide? So this is the yeah, this is where actually like the balloon bomb landed in states, or like the places where the piece of the balloon bomb got found, or like where people just heard the noise. So yeah, so like just I went to like a public sector, so the National Library in states, and then the from the archive I managed to get these informations. I pinned it on the Google map. So 9,300 balloon bombs got let from Japan, and then a couple hundreds of balloon bomb managed to land on the United States. I mean, like the people assuming basically, but so I just they walked and then like used the car to visit those areas, and so those people who let the bomb go, they don't have any idea, right? Of like whether the like the bomb actually landed or not. But I used a drone to take photos of the actual sort of the places. And the one on the right is a report from the archive, National Archive. Or like some articles from the local papers and so on and so forth. And so like if the balloon, so what was the last landscape the balloon witnessed? Like that's kind of sort of I just imagined. So like use a drone to take the images of the landscape basically. And moving on to the next slide. So there's some like the like records of the actual bomb or the balloon being discovered. So using my body to sort of visit those areas, or like talking to people who somehow got involved. So so if you see on the global scale, then like this the Japan attacking United States, and under the umbrella of World War II, the certain it's quite sort of a small, limited sort of a mission basically, right? Like within the large scale of the war. But why I looked into this balloon bomb is because I started getting skeptical towards the way media is handling the situation. So like in my case, like after the earthquake, like I moved to Fukushima, and I worked as the temporary labor in the power plant, or just walking around where the actual disaster, tsunami struck physically, and so like in talking to people who are totally traumatized from those earthquake, and and also so like revisiting those like places like hit by the balloon bomb, but at the same time, instead of like sort of physically using your body, we just like on a remote level, like we just exchange informations, like there's a huge gap and contradiction, like so that's something I'm quite interested in. So the human being. I'm looking into like the our society or us basically as a human against the media basically, and the local against a global, or so the local issues to global issues. Those things. That's what I've been thinking about. Yes, that's it for the time being.
Thank you. So from what both of the winners have said, a little bit difficult maybe to pass to Carol and Sumitomo, but if you have any comments about what the artists have said.
Comment. So maybe like nice to let people know, but during the studio visit, the Shiga and the Takeuchi, Shiga from Miyagi and the Takeuchi from Fukushima. I mean, we didn't really sort of pay attention on that fact. I mean, we could have picked up different people, but it just happened that these two artists, somehow stays in the from the disaster struck area, and but talking about presentation, all the artists, the finalists, they had really good presentation, and so I'm thinking oh no, COVID-19 situation is really hard, but I mean, of course, artists, having certain difficulties, but they're thinking ahead, of what they want to do, and to get to know about it. It was really exciting. I mean, just to hear, what they're talking about now, Shiga is saying, open up, open the space. And then, thinking about, the society and the art, there's a hint to it. There's something really very important is in there. And I think, this really sort of a precious moment to get to know, Yeah, so you see, one of the professors at the university I'm teaching, he was saying the most important things he learned is from the film, because he's a film critic. So to me, I'm learning quite a lot from art as well. So but anyway, so as we got the the partition there, not to get contact, but the Shiga simply said, open space is. It's allow us, it just gives us an opportunity to think about what it means to open space under this, the situation, and we still have room to talk about, in this society, which is really important, I think, and it's not that whether they going to sort of realize whatever they just talked about, but for the next 2 years, it's trajectory. So they may go this way or that way. So so it would be wonderful for the next 2 years, if I can visit them, that would be quite interesting. Anyway, the Carol, sort of it's been quite a while since you saw them last time, but what's your feedback or comments on them?
Yeah, it's really a great pity for me that I haven't really met both artists in person or been to their studios in person. But having heard their presentations again today really reinforce the very compelling, strong impressions I got from the Zoom studio visits before. And I really echoed Fumio-san's saying in terms of we all need to learn from the artists, as the presentations that gave today and what they plan to do really reveal to us that artists are pioneers in terms of responding to critical and urgent conditions. And I also believe very much in the urgency of their artistic projects. So I think the significance of their work is not just in the art, but also in the actions and in the kind of concerns that they have invested in their energy in through these art projects. So thank you, and I want to congratulate them again, and very much looking forward to their upcoming works.
Thank you so much.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you. So we really kind of very close to the end of the time, but if you have any other comments from the two winners, if not, then we will move on to the question and answer.
Well, like, as the Shiga just contacted me after the announcing the winners, and like as she said, so open, like as she said, open, right? So like sort of having like it's not only that, but like she just shared me different visions to it. So it's not just like receiving award, and then like so it's not like sort of like showing off like the best artist from Japan at this point. It's not that. It's just trying to do something more to it, and the Shiga approaching me in that way, like I was. I couldn't really sort of I haven't really managed to sort of get back to her on that point, but like listening to what the Carol and the Sumitomo said. To make like sort of this award significant, like that's like the interesting idea, like Shiga saying like we need to get connected or for the future, or like to opening up in space and so on. And I mean like sort of the result of the the interview, or like the studio visit, I didn't know it till the last day. So like I saw on the website, and then I just discovered that that was Takeuchi. So like I just contacted him, like saying that can I just pop into your place to see, and so we met physically, a first time to see each other, but like we had a really long conversation, and so like so Denshokan is the place, like basically like it's archive of the 311 Fukushima nuclear incident, and we stayed there quite a long time. But I wasn't. I mean, like sort of we have a wall, we have the partition there, but today, but I. Yeah, so I just like sort of like you see like being selected, being chosen right as a winner, and I just didn't want to just like receive things. You get opportunity to do things, MOT, da da da. It's not that, like I just I taking this really serious in a way that I want to sort of like proactively get involved, like I think like sort of what is really sort of I think like this is really crucial moment for art. So what art can do, like 10 years ago, like this is the question which being asked so many times, and I didn't even see the point of being asked, and I even feel today like sort of the society is becoming like society is just making the art like function in particular way. So so like sort of so I was even thinking like sort of because the society after 10 years from the the 311, the role of the art in society somehow seems like being fixed, so like I'm thinking like maybe I can just try something different, And discussing with Takeuchi, like, just try to like work it out, like, what to do, and then like, we just even ended up like, shall we just exchange physical letters? So like, yeah, so like, instead of career, like, let's use about trajectory, as in like, instead of like, the tracing up like, the rail which has been given, maybe we can just start chucking questions, So the artist project. So like you project something to forward to the audience, to the organizer, and then we like sort of basically like try out things, So maybe like we can just we should share. Yeah, so we start something, we make something, and then they share that to the public, and then like maybe from there we can start discussing. Anyway, like so I somehow managed to sort of like summarize this long discussion, but
So maybe we have time just for one question from the audience. Here in the room, is there a question from the audience? If not, then we will finish. So then, it was a very short symposium, but thank you, Carol, Sumitomo, Shiga, and Takeuchi for joining today and for sharing your valuable thoughts. As I mentioned, the TCAA exhibition is now open on the ground floor of the museum, and we welcome you all to join to see it. It's free of charge. Next year, of course, there will also be. We are opening the call for entries to next year's TCAA, so this will be available on the website. We welcome you to look at that. So then here we will finish the symposium. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Yuko SHIOMI. And we would like to end the commemorative symposium today. Please return the translation receivers on your way out. So now the TCAA exhibition, the winners of the first TCAA award, they are showing the exhibition at the moment. Thank you very much for joining today.